The pot and the kettle may have been iron once, blackened by soot. Today, they're dressed in suits, seated in chambers, speaking at podiums. But the story is the same. So when you hear the phrase today, the pot calling the kettle black, remember that it carries with it not just the smoke of history, but also the mirror it holds up to our present. You see, some phrases fade with time, but in Kenya, it seems this one never will.
Now, ladies and gentlemen, just before I play you the videos of the news gang yesterday, this one is just a recap of what happened yesterday or what they said. In case you missed what they discussed, I'm bringing you everything, how it happened or what was discussed. But before that, let me ask you this question. Why is it that in this country, the people that have a lot of money are politicians? Is it that politics pay, or it's just one of the ways that these politicians use to steal money from us, and then they come and then start showcasing us, making us feel like, we are not doing enough, politicians are working so hard. Is it? Because I'm failing to understand. Why am I asking that? I'm asking that because of what has been happening. Now, on Jamila's statement, Jamila is talking about this because right now, the MPs are insisting that they want the names of those that William Ruto is saying that asked for money and all that were taking bribe. The 10 million, the 150 million. But then, Jamila is asking a very simple question. That you want these names. And these names that you want, you are the people on that list. So how will you react when you realize that the same person that was insisting that you want to see the names, your name is among those people? Let us listen to Jamila.
Lately, I've been thinking about the endurance of certain phrases in the English language. The kind of words that travel across centuries and cultures, yet still manage to hold our attention. One of them is this: the pot calling the kettle black. Its earliest trace can be found as far back as 1546 in John Haywood's Proverbs, where he wrote, "The pot calls the kettle black, but both are black at length." Even then, the imagery was clear. Two objects, both darkened by fire, pointing at each other in accusation. The saying resurfaced in Cervantes' Don Quixote in 1620, translated into English by Thomas Shelton. And by the late 17th century, it was firmly part of the English language, appearing even in the writings of William Penn, who cautioned, "For the pot to call the kettle black." But its story doesn't start there. In fact, you can go further back and you'll find Aesop's fables, where a snake is scolding a crab for walking crooked, even though both are shaped the same. You see, humanity, it seems, has always found ways to laugh at or lament the sight of one flawed vessel mocking another. And even kitchen humor kept it alive with James Howell in 1659 when he spoke of the frying pan versus the kettle. Centuries on, the soot and the smoke of open fire cooking gave us a metaphor that refuses to die. And perhaps it endures because hypocrisy endures. Because centuries later, we still live in a world where institutions accuse each other of the very faults they embody, where leaders condemn in others the same failings that shadow their own record. The pot and the kettle may have been iron once, blackened by soot. Today, they're dressed in suits, seated in chambers, speaking at podiums. But the story is the same. So when you hear the phrase today, the pot calling the kettle black, remember that it carries with it not just the smoke of history, but also the mirror it holds up to our present. You see, some phrases fade with time, but in Kenya, it seems this one never will. That's my take tonight.
Sana with this administration. Remember after the elections and the president being sworn in, how many members of parliament trooped to KK? Because the ones who had won an independent wakaenda.
Right.
Some of those smaller parties, I think like UDM, wakaenda. Joining this coalition and having all these numbers. Kiasi cha kwamba there was this whole push and pull about which of the two sides had the more members of parliament. But walianza mapema hivyo. And you give instances when you call it pliability of these members of parliament. Kizungu kubwa kubwa hivyo utawacha. But the point is this, it got worse with the broad-based arrangement. They got more numbers and they're able to pass more bills into law. But then, Yvonne, I'm looking at it from the point of view of Kenyans. When they watch this happening, I said it's like they look at it as a tennis match. So for them, they're waiting to see, well, this marriage is shaky. Kuna huyu anajua siri ya huyu mwingine. Everyone knows where the skulls are buried. And people really want names. They want information. They want kufichuliwa. Like, okay, these are the amounts of money that was given to committee A, B, C. And this was the money that was given to the executive. And this was what the consequence of this was. It was money to pass a bill. It was money to clear someone. Tupatiwe details. Because Waswahili husema fahali wawili wakipigana nyasi ndio huumia. In this instance, nyasi watakaumia ni wao wenyewe, the two that are fighting, which is the executive and parliament. But when you listen to them, and I hope we have the sound bites of the MP's reaction, maybe you can keep it ready for me, Robert. They were saying a lot of things but saying nothing. Because there was nothing direct being said to the executive. Walikuwa nasema tu vitu mingi, alafu pia there's this thing about how you say it. You sound angry, you're speaking in a loud voice, you sound like nimekasirika. But really, if you look very closely, there's nothing of substance that's being said. I think the one person who said something that sounded, okay, kuna kitu hapa, was the chair of the Senate Public Accounts Committee, I think Senator Kajwang, who said, well, the president should come and substantiate what he has said. Yeah. It cannot be a kangaroo court and things like that. But if you listen to members of parliament who were speaking in parliament the day before yesterday, in my opinion, hakuna kitu walikuwa nasema chama na memo tonight. Let's give chapter 6 of the Constitution on leadership and integrity another try. It was written with such optimism, with the hope that our leaders would treat public office as a sacred trust. But if you look at the circus in Kenya today, you'd be forgiven for thinking chapter 6 was just a bedtime story, inspiring to read, but never meant to be lived. The president now says MPs and senators are demanding bribes to pass legislation and to let impeached governors escape justice. That's a bold accusation. But coming from the executive, it sounds like the pot calling the kettle black. This administration has hardly been free of corruption whispers. And with the broad-based arrangement in Parliament, where the opposition was swallowed whole, legislators have largely been reduced to rubber stamping whatever the executive wants. Until now, when the marriage suddenly looks shaky. But while the executive and legislature point fingers at each other, ordinary Kenyans, the very people who elected them, are watching with growing anger. We lined up at the polling stations because of the promises. Better leadership, clean governance, dignity in public service. What we got instead is political theatre. And not even the good theatre, the kind where the actors forget their lines, the set collapses, and the audience feels scammed. Chapter 6 is crystal clear. Article 73 says, and I quote, "Authority assigned to a state officer is a public trust, to be exercised in a manner that demonstrates respect for the people, brings honor to the nation, and dignity to the office, and promotes public confidence in the integrity of the office. It vests in the state officer the responsibility to serve the people rather than the people to rule them, rather than the power to rule them." End of quote. Public trust, service to the people, not power to rule. Yet look around. Do you see respect, honor, dignity? Or do you see leaders cashing in on the very power they swore would be a responsibility? Kenyans are not blind. We can see the betrayal. We can see the hypocrisy. We can see the promises turn to dust. And yes, we can feel the sting of a constitution that looks noble on paper, but ignored in practice. So as MPs and senators clash with the executive, here's the truth. Kenyans aren't cheering either side. Because for us, it doesn't matter who wins the shouting match. The economy still hurts. Taxes still bite. Jobs are still scarce. Integrity should not be negotiable. It should be the bare minimum. Our leaders must decide, will they continue to treat public office as a cash cow, or will they finally respect the constitution they sworn? Because one thing is clear. The Kenyan electorate is running out of patience. Dear leaders, stop treating Chapter 6 as a sideline irrelevance. Kenyans are not paying taxes to watch you act in a bad play. Kenyans are done clapping for bad actors. And that is my memo.
Another person who is talking about something here is Bonyo. Bonyo is talking about, the confusion that is in Parliament right now. The members of Parliament, they've forgotten with their work. Their work is to oversight. Their work is to represent the legislature and also the electorate. But they've forgotten with that. Instead, they are protecting the executive. How? When the executive gives them money, they do what the executive wants. And that is why one of the members of Parliament exploded yesterday and said that when the president wanted the issue of SHA, we sat here up to late hours, at around 10 at night, just passing the bills. We'll be passing the bills because William Ruto wants that. So why is it that right now he is accusing us of being bribed or taking bribe, yet he is the most corrupt person that we've ever had? Listen to it.
Confession coming from a member of parliament actually who pushed for this debate to happen. And his confession tells us one thing that we've always feared, that the independence of this parliament is questionable, that every action must have some semblance of a push from the executive. And you see, if you look at the role of parliament today, it's supposed to do only three basic things. It's supposed to oversight the national government, it's supposed to represent the electorate, and legislate. The quality that comes out, and even other bites that you listen to members of parliament on that Tuesday afternoon, they are all asking that one question, that we have done everything you wanted us to do. Why are you doing this to us now? So I think that moment needs not to be missed, so that Kenyans pile pressure and MPs start doing the job that they were elected to do.
Yeah, and that job now, oh, you're corrupt, I'm corrupt, who's more corrupt? Is it you, is it me, is it, where does this leave us, Jay?
Strategic incoherence.
Who has the big English now?
Oh, simple. Because what in all this noise, what are these guys trying to say? Because it is very obvious that this parliament has done more bidding for the executive than any other parliament that has sat. That individually, they will admit to you the shenanigans that goes on, especially when they're trying to push critical government bills. And even for some of them, it is very lucrative when bills come from the majority side, because they know ultimately we will be induced to pass it. So this is what makes it very interesting, Yvonne, that if you speak to a number of former MPs, they admit to it. They're only shocked at the value, that the value has now gone up. If you listen to some of them that were hosted on this very desk in the course of the week, they were admitting that these things happen. It's only that the size of the check has gone up. So it's a tradition in parliament. And therefore, it doesn't really look good when all these MPs are foaming at the mouth and saying, name them, tell this. No. Like Linus initially said, this is a very strategic opportunity for the country to address this now. Let us engage. Let us speak about it. The president has made a very bold statement, which is akin to belling the cat. Now let the process move. So 10 million was requested. From who? Did you receive the money? Who gave the money? And who was it supposed to be taken to so that the rest receives it? So that is the starting point. That he knows from raw intelligence that MPs or senators received some 150 million. That raw intelligence has got bits and pieces so that he's able to consume it with ease. So he knows who is this that dished the money, who received, and Fatuma Dulo, the senator, says it very clearly. If you look at some of the things that these MPs were writing on their social media posts, that let's stop this pretense, we have done it before. So what we ultimately need to work on is let people try and be honest.
Yeah.
Honesty, let them be very honest.
Yeah, and I guess that's where we are.
Tonight, I lined my bone on National Assembly Speaker Moses Masika Wetangula, the 8th and current Speaker of this august House. He first entered Parliament in 1992, nominated by the then ruling party, KANU. Papa Waroma, as he loves to call himself, has been in and out of this House for nearly 3 decades. That's enough experience to know that moral authority isn't given by title, it's earned by stature. But sadly, Mr. Speaker, you have refused to rise above the stature of an ordinary MP. Wetangula has chosen to drag the Speaker's chair down the trenches of partisan politics. In recent weeks, Wetangula has lowered the dignity of the office, dancing and making merry with MPs at endless empowerment parties, openly campaigning for President William Ruto's re-election. No, Mr. Speaker, you are out of order. Your demeanor must rise above petty politics. Instead, your decisions from that high chair are increasingly tainted, partisan and questionable. In Parliament today, Wetangula presides, but he no longer leads. Papa Waroma, there is a reason why you move with a motorcade. The reason roads are cleared for you. Your role is not to lord over MPs, but to guide them. But because you drink, dine, and dance with your charge, you cannot command them. You cannot discipline them. You cannot be the perfect prefect as you are supposed to be and as desired by our Constitution. And now the most damning part. By your own admission, you are presiding over a house stripped of integrity.
I have received some letters about members that I would have presented to the agencies on different things. Sometimes I call you, I talk to you, and you correct your ways. Let's also uphold our integrity.
On whose authority, Mr. Speaker, did you decide to become the judge and the jury? Who gave you the mandate to bury evidence of corruption with nothing more than a pep talk to suspected MPs?
In my community, we say there's no little stream that does not have a snake. Every stream has its snake. And like Parliament, we probably also have our snake.
Mr. Wetangula, who made you the snake charmer? Who told you it was your role to decide which snakes bite and which one slithers away? By choosing to look the other way, you have admitted to shielding corruption. In that moment, you stripped the Speaker's office of its moral authority. A polite reminder, Mr. Speaker, in politics, silence in the face of graft is not neutrality, it is partnership. The Speaker is not just another MP, he is the referee. And what do we call a referee who sees fouls, hears the bribes, but keeps the whistles in his pocket? You are not neutral, not fair, not fit. Let's remind you of one fact, Mr. Speaker. You are not just any politician. You are the third in command. If the president and the deputy are absent, you stand in line to be the head of state. Well, Wetangula may not be fit to be the president, but the Speaker of the National Assembly must be fit to be the president. That is what the Constitution demands. That, Mr. Speaker, sir, is my bond tonight.
And of course, Kai was talking about the opportunity. What is happening right now is an opportunity that should not be forgotten. the members of parliament, the thieves have started blaming themselves. Both the party, the legislature and the executive have started blaming themselves. Something that we never saw coming, but it has come.
The one thing that should not be missed is the rare opportunity. I said earlier that for the first time, the real suspects in grand corruption are having an argument. And that is very, very rare. This opportunity and moment should not be missed. Both houses are vulnerable. There is enough debt on both ends of this exchange. So these two teams are at the dumping site, and they are digging up in a very interesting way. And dig they should for the sake of the country, because we'll get to know quite a number of things that ought to be known. But I was looking at the whole thing in context, starting with the president. Is it that probably the president finally came to the realization that the one greatest impediment facing Kenya today is grand corruption? Could he have come to the realization that you cannot develop Kenya and have corruption at the same time? It's one or the other. You can't have both. Because if you look at the relationship of this president and the two parliaments, is it two, or actually this should be the third now? Because in my view, the rain really started beating us hard in 2013. That is when the real decline of the political culture in this country worsened. There was a decline before, but now it worsened in 2013 because our politics became openly transactional. It's completely transactional, it's financial. Look, from 2013, who becomes MP is the highest bidder. You've had stories about who becomes president. You just need to look at what the current new aspirants are being told. If you don't have 5 billion, don't even think about it. Why? Because of the political culture that matured in 2013 with the new generation of old Kanu politicians coming to the scene and placing money at the center of leadership. So it's coming to bite everyone, because this National Assembly and this Senate is made up of that culture, where money is the alpha and omega of the political career. You either, if you don't have it, you can't run. If you don't have it, you can't sustain, or you can't be re-elected. And let's face it, this has put tremendous pressure on these politicians, which is why corruption is on a grand scale, because they are busy looking for the extra money. And what they have done is to make even their business transactional. You saw the confessions, because let's take them as confessions, on Sam's Daybreak segment. Money first. You want a bill to be passed?
Pay.
Pay. You want impeachment? Pay. You want to avoid impeachment? Pay. So, in the run-up to the 2022 elections, President William Ruto, who was then deputy president and presidential candidate of the Kenya Kwanza Alliance, promised that he shall institute a quasi-judicial public inquiry into, quote, state capture. With 39 days to the August 2022 election, the presidential candidate pledged that within 30 days of coming into office, he will appoint the State Capture Inquiry Commission to, among other things, examine the extent of cronyism and political elite influence over public institutions and make recommendations. On my Kika tonight, we take a look back at the promise of a state capture inquiry made in 2022. Citizen TV's Sam Gituku reports.
Alliance now promises to appoint a quasi-judicial public inquiry body to probe the extent of the state capture and cronyism, meaning situations where trusted allies of those in power benefit from state jobs and tenders. The alliance plans to establish the mechanism within 30 days, its duty being to give recommendations to the government that will guide implementation. And to ensure conflict of interest is dealt with, the alliance is promising to ensure that organizations that do business with the government share information on beneficial owners of the said companies. The Companies Act describes beneficial owners as the ultimate owners of a business who may not necessarily be at the forefront of seeking business opportunities for the organization. At a time, some powerful politicians and Kenyans have millions worth of property outside the country. The Kenya Kwanza Alliance is promising to collaborate further with foreign partners in the sharing of information and repatriation of stolen assets.
Sam Gituku reporting in June 2022. Now, in the wake of the legal hurdles to his proposed multi-agency approach, I would urge President Ruto to revisit the promise of a state capture inquiry. In its basic definition, state capture is a form of systemic corruption in which private individuals or powerful elites exert undue influence over government institutions and decision-making processes to serve their own private interests rather than the public good. To apply this as close as possible to the Kenyan context, orders from above, mkubwa amesema, hiyo ni ya mkubwa, and the like, all that constitutes elements of state capture. It is about the use of state power for private gain. And normally, it is a process of converting that public power to private gain that results in corruption. Kenya's greatest impediment today is official or high-level corruption. An inquiry on state capture would, for example, connect all the dots between individuals, their positions in political power, and mega deals. A state capture inquiry might just provide answers to questions around mega projects like the Aror Kimorer Dam, the so-called government-to-government oil importation deal, the edible oil scandal, the Adani JKIA and Ketraco failed deals, and even the unclear Shah-Schiff deals, as well as the privatization of state corporations such as the Kenya Pipeline Corporation. And going by the scope proposed at the time by candidate Ruto in 2022, a state capture inquiry may also provide answers to many questions around the Uhuru Kenyatta era movement of Eurobond billions. How about the Malaba-bound SGR line that ends suddenly in a narrow thicket? To fight corruption, give us a state capture inquiry, Mr. President. Even if just for information, a state capture inquiry would make a thrilling chapter in the long story of the looting of Kenya by an expanding clique of greedy political elite. Give us a state capture inquiry you promised, Mr. President. That is my kicker.
And lastly, Sam is asking a very simple question. That we were not told when Rigathi Gachagua was going outside the country. When he's coming back, a lot of people are losing their lives. Actually, the Royal Media Service lost a lot of working equipment, whereby some were broken, some were stolen, and some of the reporters, the journalists, are nursing their wounds in hospitals. So why all these things? Why would you just hire goons to interfere, and the goons that you're hiring are not well learned, not well trained, that they can handle pressure, they can just do their things without interfering with other people's businesses?
Fortunate event to have happened today in regards to the violence that we are seeing, that people that have nothing to do with the return of Rigathi Gachagua are now nursing injuries. We're talking about journalists who have been injured. media houses that have lost equipment or vehicles. Are there members of the public that have also been injured in, of course, what was happening today? It is rather unfortunate that we are turning into this, and I just hope that the politicians in Nairobi can call themselves to some meeting of conscience to really think of how exactly, however difficult that is, Linus, how exactly do they want to run their politics? Because really, you cannot keep deploying your goons to come and support whatever you want to achieve. I mean, surely, there's no election today, there's no election tomorrow. The next election is actually 27th of November, which are by-elections. We don't even have the candidates. They've not been cleared or registered by the IEBC. So what's the fight about? Most people, when they go out, like when Rigathi Gachagua left the country, do you even know that now he has left? Well, he announced yes, but he was not escorted by the public.
Right, yeah.
When President William Ruto left, yes, media houses will learn about it because they will be sent the footage from his press crew. Well, imagine that when he's coming back, we'll still receive pictures. I mean, I don't see why it's such a big deal to come back home. But then, them being politicians, there's the value of politics of homecoming. I just don't know if it adds any value anymore, but I think it's just posturing for the events that are about to happen, like Jamila says. So imagining that today, part of the top stories is about Rigathi Gachagua's return. If you look at the newspapers tomorrow, I would imagine that they'll have some of those stories on the front pages. Then tomorrow he calls a press conference, then he dominates the coverage again. So this is the return of Rigathi Gachagua, the person who you would imagine has been quite a thorn for the government of President William Ruto. So it's a matter of watching what this will mean for the opposition politics at a time that we've been seeing them speaking at different corners, each person pushing for their own interest, and we'll wait to see how they can now push their politics forward. But we must hope and we must work so hard to ensure that we can protect the democratic rights of every person in this country, to ensure that we are not losing lives and not getting injuries, long-lasting injuries, just because you at an event. Now, the country has witnessed a circuit of political rallies, all branded as economic empowerment. We've seen the spectacle of politicians dancing in town centers, crowds cheering, and cameras capturing images of motorbikes, car wash machines, water tanks, cash in baskets, and most recently at State House, thousands of plastic chairs stacked high, all paraded as proof of a bottom-up economic transformation. But is that economic transformation? You see, we live in a country that the political class praises as a beautiful country. And we hear from the highest levels in the land that the Kenyan human capital towers above many nations in Africa, that Kenya's human capital is the most valuable asset we have. If so, is this asset best expressed through border riding and car wash machines? But by harsh economic realities. 2 weeks ago, thousands of young people danced at State House, flashing the two-finger salute and chanting, "Tutam." Still, this is economic transformation, we were told. There are countless graduates now working as taxi drivers, border riders, or hustling at car washes. They studied hard, expecting an economy ready to absorb their skills and ideas. Instead, they are left clutching at survival. And the solution from our leaders? Music, speeches, a few tents and chairs, maybe a motorbike here and there, then a rallying call, Wapinduria rice, and suddenly it's labeled economic empowerment. You see, Kenya has a GDP of over 16 trillion shillings and a national budget exceeding 4.2 trillion shillings. That money should be funding bold transformational programs. Instead, most of it goes to paying salaries and servicing debt. And whatever remains goes to financing services and infrastructure that is usually inflated to benefit the politically connected. So why should politicians need to raise a few millions through Harambes to empower youth groups? And when you put together 11,000 youth from Nairobi at State House under groups of 10, award them tents and chairs, or one motorbike per group, what exactly are you doing? How exactly is that empowering? What happens to the other millions not reached by such generosity? Those that only have a graduation certificate and a skill set? More troubling are the questions around funding. Estimates put the State House empowerment meeting at over £500 million shillings. We are told it was raised by political leaders, including the president. But how does a handful of leaders raise 500 million shillings in such a short time? We have laws that govern just how much money can be transacted at any given point without raising questions. What would the law say about those empowerment ventures? Still, at the multi-million worth of giveaways, where was the equipment purchased? At what cost? Were taxes like VAT actually paid? Or was the whole thing structured to bypass scrutiny by the control of budget and the Auditor General? If these were genuine government programs, they could be debated, structured, budgeted, and audited. We could measure impact and value for money. But instead, we get a roadshow of political theater, funded by questionable sources and designed more for political capital than economic growth. Let's be clear. No country has ever built a sustainable economy on handouts and photo opportunities. That's my sense tonight.